Greetings from Somewhere, Book 3, The Mystery of the Stolen Painting. Chapter 1, The City of Light. Ella Breyer gazed out the airplane window. Down below, miles of glittering lights twinkled against the evening sky. "Look, Ethan," she said to her twin brother. "That must be Paris." Ella said, "It's awesome." "I think that's the Eiffel Tower," Ella said, pointing. "Did you know that the Eiffel Tower is the tallest structure in Paris?" their dad, Andrew, called out from across the aisle. "It was built in 1889 for the World's Fair." "I see a river,"
I see a river.
Ella announced. "That is probably the Seine," Mr. Breyer guessed. "It divides Paris into two parts, the right bank and the left bank. We
Right
are
bank.
staying in a lovely neighborhood on the right bank," their mom, Josephine, said as she smoothed on lipstick. "There are a lot of fun shops there, and we'll be close to a famous museum called the Louvre." Fun shops, a famous museum, the twins couldn't wait. A short while later, their plane landed at the airport. The Breyers took a taxi to the apartment they were renting. The building had no elevator, so they had to carry their suitcases up 5 flights of marble stairs. They were out of breath by the time they got to the top. The climb was worth it, though. The apartment was enormous, with an elegant balcony that overlooked red rooftops and bustling cafes. Brightly lit boats cruised along the river. In the distance, the Eiffel Tower shimmered like a gold jewel. Ella remembered from her dad's guidebook that Paris was often called the City of Light. Now she knew why. Ethan ran straight to the biggest bedroom. "Dibs!" he shouted. "Hey, not fair!"
Hey, not fair.
Ella protested. "How about your father and I take this room?" Mrs. Breyer suggested. "Ethan, there's a green room down the hall with soccer posters. And Ella, the purple room has lots of books in English." Ella loved books, and purple was her favorite color. She raced down the hallway with her suitcase and found her room. It had a canopy bed with a lavender bedspread. Black and white photographs of Paris covered the walls. Next to the bed was a wooden bookshelf. Ella spotted a couple of books she'd already read, Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim, and Shiloh. Tucked between them was a dusty old volume called Le Secret du Paris. Curiously, she picked it up and flipped to the first page. It was all in French. However, someone had scribbled something in pencil. It was in English. "Paris is full of secret places that you will not find in any guidebook." Ella shivered with excitement. What did that mean? Would she and Ethan stumble upon any of these secret places while they were in Paris? Chapter 2, Strolling Through Paris. The next morning, the Breyers headed out for a walk through the cobblestone streets of Paris. First,
Look at what I'm doing.
they stopped at a neighborhood cafe for a quick breakfast. The twins loved. The next morning, the Breyers headed out for a walk through the cobblestone streets of Paris. First, they stopped at a neighborhood cafe for a quick breakfast. The twins loved the fresh orange juice and croissants, which were flaky rolls shaped like half moons. After breakfast, they went to several shops to buy supplies for their picnic lunch. They were going to have lunch at a park called the Luxembourg Gardens. They went to a boulangerie for bread. They went to a fromagerie for cheese. And finally, they went to a pâtisserie for pastries. Mrs. Briar put everything in a picnic basket she had found in their apartment. "I've already planned a nice winding route for us," Mr. Briar announced, holding up a crinkled map of Paris. "Oops, that's upside down. Here we go. Follow me, kids." Mr. Briar led the way. Mrs. Briar lagged behind as she took photos of the scenery and spoke into a tiny tape recorder. Mrs. Briar was a travel writer. She and the family traveled to different foreign cities so she could write about it for her newspaper column, Journeys with Joe. While she worked, Mr. Briar took care of the twins and homeschooled them. In the beginning, Ethan and Ella had not been happy about leaving Brookston. They missed their house, their friends, their school, and their second-grade teacher, Mrs. Applebaum, and most of all, their grandpa, Harry. Still, their first stop, Venice, Italy, had been a lot of fun. The twins had even solved a mystery when a gondola went missing, and they really liked what they'd seen of Paris so far. They crossed a short bridge and saw an enormous stone church. "Kids, this is the Notre Dame Cathedral," Mr. Briar explained. "See those statues up there that look like goblins with wings? They're called gargoyles, and they were put there as a protection against evil." Mr. Briar was a history professor and knew lots of interesting facts. Near Notre Dame was a street full of tiny shops. A sweet, buttery smell was coming from one of them. "What's that yummy smell?"
What's that yummy smell? What's that yummy smell?
Ella wondered out loud. "That's a crêperie, or crepe shop. Crepes are thin pancakes with delicious ingredients rolled up inside, like chocolate and strawberries, or ham and cheese," Mr. Briar replied. "Can we get one? Can we get one?"
Can we get one? Can we get one?
Ella begged. Mr. Briar laughed. "Maybe later. We don't want to spoil our appetites before our picnic." Soon the family crossed back over the Seine on another, longer bridge. After a few blocks, they found themselves near a building that seemed to go on forever. "Oh, this is the famous museum I mentioned last night, the Louvre," Mrs. Briar said, snapping a picture. "Isn't it wonderful?" "It used to be a fortress before it was a museum," Mr. Briar added. Ethan could totally imagine soldiers inside, watching and waiting for enemy ships on the river. "Can we go in and look around?"
Can we go in and look around?
Ella asked. "They're closed on Tuesdays, but I promise we'll come back tomorrow," Mr. Briar replied. "Hey, postcards!" He and Mrs. Briar walked over to a street stand that sold souvenirs. Ella went over to the stand next to it, which sold jewelry. Ethan joined his sister just as a line of police cars sped by, their sirens blaring noisily. The sirens in Paris sounded different from the sirens back home. Ella picked up a sparkly bracelet. "This is really pretty,"
This is really.
she said to the woman behind the stand. "Did you make it?"
Did you make it?
The woman didn't reply at first. Glancing past the twins, she twirled her long red hair nervously. She wore a ring that looked like a coiled silver snake. "No, mademoiselle, I did not make it. Please give it back." She grabbed the bracelet out of Ella's hand. "Ella, Ethan, we'd better move on if we want to get to the Luxembourg Gardens by lunchtime," Mr. Briar interrupted. He held a bag of postcards in his hand. As they walked away, the woman reached for her cell phone and dialed a number. She'd said something in French. Her voice sounded urgent. Well, she's not very friendly.
Well, she's not really friendly.
Ella whispered to Ethan. Ethan nodded. I know. I hope she's not here tomorrow when we come back, he murmured. Chapter 3. A New Mystery. Back at their apartment, the twins decided to check their email before their homeschooling lesson. 4 messages popped up on the laptop screen. The first 2 were from Hannah, Ella's best friend from back home. The third was from Ethan's best friend, Theo. The last message was a note from Grandpa Harry. How exciting! Ella clicked on his email. Ethan leaned over her shoulder as they read it together. To Ethan and Ella, from Grandpa Harry. Subject, Sweets for my sweets. Hello, my dears. Bienvenue à Paris. That means welcome to Paris. I hope you are enjoying this city of light. Speaking of light, the Eiffel Tower has a special light show every night. Make sure you catch it. It is magical. Did you know that I asked your Grandma Lucy to marry me in Paris? I was studying at the university to be an archaeologist. I asked her while we were having crepes at a very special crêperie owned by my friend on Rue des Fleurs. Rue means street, and fleur means flower. Perhaps you will get a chance to go to this crepe shop. But, a warning, its name and exact address are also a secret. Also, you must give a password at the door. It is Foicon. Good luck, my dears. When you find the crêperie, please tell Jean and Jacqueline that their old friend, Harry Robinson, says bonjour. That means hello. Love, Grandpa Harry. A secret crepe shop?
A secret grape shop.
Ella exclaimed. We have to find it.
We have to find it.
Yeah, but how? We don't know what it's called or where it is, Ethan pointed out. We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
Ella reached for her bag. She pulled out her notebook, which was purple, with a shiny gold spine. What are you doing? Ethan asked. Writing down our clues, of course.
Writing down our clues. Course.
Ella replied, rolling her eyes. Grandpa Harry had given Ella the notebook before the Briars left on their big trip. He'd told her that she might use it for solving mysteries. He had also given Ethan a going-away present, a gold coin with a picture of a hawk on it. Ella opened her notebook to a clean page and wrote, Rue des Fleurs. Password, Foicon. Then an idea came to her. Follow me,
Follow me.
she told her brother. Ella closed her laptop and ran down the hall to her room, clutching her notebook. Ethan ran after her. Once there, she got Le Secret du Paris from the bookshelf. She found a page with the handwriting on it and then showed it to Ethan. Paris is full of secret places that you will not find in any guidebook.
Paris places that you will not find in any guide.
Ella read out loud. What does that mean? Asked Ethan. I'm not sure,
I'm not sure.
but maybe Grandpa Harry's secret crepe shop is in this book.
But maybe Grandpa Harry's secret crepe shop.
Ella suggested. The twins hunched over the old book and went through it page by page. It was all in French, and they couldn't understand it. At the end of a book was a map of the city. Ethan scanned it quickly. Rue des Flandres? Was that the secret he mentioned? He asked Ella. Ella glanced at her notebook. No, it was Rue des Fleurs.
No, it was Rue des Boblé.
Fleur.
F-R-R-U-R.
The twins continued scanning the map. After a moment, Ethan found the street. Rue des Fleurs. Here it is, he practically shouted. It's near some big building called the Musée du Louvre.
It's somewhere near a boat name. Say there for you.
Ellen noted. That must be French for the Louvre Museum.
That must be French for the Louvre Museum.
Where we're going tomorrow, Ethan said eagerly. We can find the secret crepe shop then. Chapter 4. Stolen.
Chapter 4. Stolen.
The next morning, Mr. Briar and the twins returned to the Louvre. The secret crepe shop must be somewhere near here, Ethan whispered to Ella as he looked around. Now we just need to get away from Dad so we can find it. Ella frowned suspiciously. Get away from Dad?
Get away from Dad.
How are we going to do that?
How are we going to do that?
We'll find a way, Ethan said with a sly smile. The Briars entered the museum. There were so many things to look at. Ella's favorite was the marble statue of Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. Ethan...
I heard that in,
Magic Tree House?
yeah.
You're learning so much.
Nike, the goddess of victory. That's what I said.
Ethan loved the remains of the fortresses that used to be there. It was almost like going back in time to the Middle Ages. After the fortress, they went to a crowded room that was filled with people. In the middle of the room was a small portrait of a woman with long brown hair. There were mountains in the background. This is probably the most famous painting in the museum. It's called the Mona Lisa, Mr. Briar explained. Do you know what's so cool? No matter where you're standing, she always seems to be looking at you. No way!
No way!
Ella said, surprised. Curious, she walked 10 steps to the left. The woman in the painting was still staring at her. She took 10 more steps. She was still staring at her. Dad's right. You try it.
That's right. You try it.
Ella told Ethan. Ethan repeated Ella's steps. That's spooky, he said after a moment. Is the painting haunted? Mr. Briar chuckled. I don't think so, although there is a mystery surrounding the painting. Some experts think the Mona Lisa isn't who she appears to be, and his words were drowned out by a loud alarm. A voice rang out over the speakers. The museum is now closed. Please exit the museum.
The museum is now closed. Please exit the museum.
Ethan glanced around. Everyone in the room was heading towards the doors. What's going on? He asked his dad. I'm not sure. It's probably just an electrical problem or something, Mr. Briar replied with a shrug. Not to fear. I have more fun things planned for us after this. The twins followed their dad into the jam-packed hallway. As they neared the suitcase, they overheard 2 women speaking in English. I just asked one of the museum guards. He said that an incredibly valuable painting has been stolen, one of the women said. Chapter 5. The thief leaves a clue.
Chapter 5. Thief leaves a clue.
Ella, did you hear what that woman said? Ethan whispered. Ella nodded. Yes, a painting was stolen.
Yes, painting was stolen.
That's awful.
That's awful.
I wonder if the thief is still here, Ethan said. They glanced at their dad to see if he had heard too, but he was busy reading his guidebook. The three of them exited the museum. People had spilled out into the courtyard. A juggler entertained a crowd in front of the fountains. Mr. Breyer pulled his map out of his messenger bag. Kids, I'm going to ask someone for directions to this Arc de Triomphe.
Look at
He
the
called
woman.
out.
There's the woman from that yesterday.
Ooh, I think you're right. Good observation. It's a monument that was built in honor of French soldiers. We can spend the rest of the morning there, he added. Stay here. I'll be right back. In the courtyard, a police officer was talking to a museum guard. Ethan walked over to them. Ethan, what are you doing?
Ethan, what are you doing?
Ella called out. I want to find out about the stolen painting, Ethan replied. Come on. Ella sighed and trailed after her brother. When they got within earshot, Ethan stopped and pretended to tie his shoes. Ella pretended to get something out of her bag. But the police officers and the guard were speaking in French. It's no use. Let's go, Ethan said, turning away. Ella started to turn too, then did a double take. The guard was showing the police officers a silver ring. It was shaped like a coiled-up snake. Ella frowned. The ring looked familiar. Where had she seen it before? The guard is telling the police officers that the thief left that ring behind. Ella overheard someone say, Kids, there you are. Mr. Breyer rushed up. You'll never believe it. I ran into my old friend Leo from college. He wants to have coffee at that cafe over there. Is that okay with you? We can go to the Arc de Triomphe afterwards. Sure,
Sure.
Ella replied. No, Ethan blurted out at the same time. Ella and I really want to watch that juggler. Please? Ella stared at her brother. What was he up to now? Mr. Breyer pushed his glasses up on his nose and checked out the juggler. He is very good. All right, I won't be long. Stay right here and don't wander off. We won't,
We won't.
Ella promised. As soon as Mr. Breyer was gone, Ethan grabbed Ella's arm. This is our chance to find Grandpa Harry's secret crepe shop, he told her. Ella thought for a moment. Okay,
Okay.
she said. But first, there's something else I want to do.
First, there's something else I want.
Can we go back to the jewelry stand from yesterday?
Can we go back to the jewelry stand yesterday?
To look at more bracelets? No way, Ethan complained. Ella shook her head. Not bracelets. I think I found a clue.
I think I found a clue.
Ethan's hazel eyes widened. What kind of clue? The thief left a silver ring shaped like a snake.
The thief left a silver ring shaped like a snake.
Ella explained. The woman at the jewelry stand was wearing a ring like that.
The woman at the jewelry stand was wearing a ring like that.
Remember? Maybe she's connected to the missing painting somehow.
Maybe she's connected to missing piece painting somehow.
Chapter 6. A Speedy Getaway. A few minutes later, the twins found the row of street vendors from the day before. Tourists gathered around the stands, shopping for postcards and souvenirs. Ethan and Ella spotted the red-haired woman right away. "There she is!"
There she is!
Ella said excitedly. The woman was talking on her cell phone and putting all her jewelry into a black briefcase, as though she was closing up for the day. The twins moved closer, pretending to look at miniature Eiffel Towers at the next stand. The woman spoke in French, so it was impossible to understand her. But at one point, she said something that sounded like Rue des Fleurs. Did she just say Rue des Fleurs?
Did she just say Rue des Fleurs?
Ella asked Ethan. Isn't that? Ella pulled her purple notebook out of her backpack and flipped through it quickly. Yes, that's the very same street Grandpa Harry's street crepe shop is on.
Yeah, that's the very same street that Grandpa Harry's secret crepe shop is on.
We'd better talk to her right away, Ethan suggested. Maybe she knows something about the missing painting and the secret crepe shop. But before the twins could question her, the woman took off down the street, clutching her briefcase. She jumped into a waiting car with tinted windows. The door slammed closed, and the car sped away. Oh no! Now what do we do?
Oh no! Now what do we do?
Ella cried. I think we should try to find Rue des Fleurs, Ethan said, watching the car weave in and out of traffic. We turn right here,
We turn right here.
Ella said, squinting at the map she had brought along. Or is it left?
Or is it left?
Ethan leaned over to take a look. I think we have to turn right when we get to this other street, he said, pointing. The twins made it to the neighborhood where Rue des Fleurs was supposed to be. But standing on a crowded corner, they weren't sure which way to go next. Where are the street signs?
Where are the street signs?
Ella asked, glancing around. Ethan frowned. His sister was right. Paris didn't have any street signs. And then he noticed something interesting. The buildings at the corners of the intersection had small blue signs on both sides. The signs had fancy writing on them. That one says Rue de Rivoli.
That one says Rue des Rivoli.
Ella read. Those must be the street signs.
Those must be the street signs.
Good, Ethan said. Let's follow those. The twins crisscrossed their way until they finally reached Rue des Fleurs. It was a small street lined on either side by apartments and little stores, including several flower shops. Buckets of colorful blooms covered one section of the sidewalk. Yes! We found Rue des Fleurs.
Yes. We found Rue des Fleurs.
Ella said excitedly. Now all we have to do is find the secret crepe shop.
Now all we have to do is find the secret crepe shop.
And the jewelry lady too.
And the jewelry lady too.
Just then, a car with tinted windows raced down the narrow street, its tires squealing. Look out!
Look out!
Ella shouted. She and Ethan flattened themselves against a building to avoid the speeding car. The car screeched to a stop and dropped off a passenger before driving away. It was the red-haired woman. Chapter 7. The Secret Crepe Shop.
Chapter Secret Crepe Shop.
The red-haired woman rushed up to a brick apartment building. She had a briefcase with her. Using a key, she opened the front door and disappeared inside. Did she see us?
Did she see us?
Ella asked Ethan nervously. Ethan shook his head. I don't think so. Let's follow her. Follow her where?
Follow her where?
Ella demanded. Just trust me, Ethan said. He inched up to the first floor window of the brick building. Ella followed, close behind. The curtains on the window were lacy and sheer, which made it easy to see in. The twins pressed their faces to the glass and gasped. Inside the apartment, 3 people sat around a table, arguing in loud voices. One of them was the red-haired woman. The other 2 were men. Propped up on the table was a beautiful painting, framed in gold.
That's the painting. They stole it.
That's right. It was a portrait of a little girl with a dog. Ella jabbed Ethan with her elbow. That must be the stolen painting,
That must be the stolen painting.
she whispered fiercely. The red-haired woman opened her briefcase and spilled her jewelry onto the table. Ethan gasped. Maybe the bracelets and stuff are stolen too, he said. I bet she was trying to sell them at her stand.
I think she was trying to sell them at her stand.
Suddenly, one of the men pushed back his chair, stood up, and started for the front door. For a split second, the twins watched in horror as the doorknob turned. They were about to be discovered. We have to hide, now,
That's hide now.
Ella cried. She grabbed Ethan and pulled him away from the window. Glancing around frantically, she saw an open doorway 1 building over. Quick, in here!
Quick, in here.
The twins made a mad dash for the building and ducked inside. They slammed the door behind them. Phew! That was close,
Phew! That was close.
Ella said breathlessly. Bonjour? The twins whirled around. A tiny woman with curly gray hair stood behind a counter. She peered at them from over the top of her glasses. Montez passé, s'il vous plaît, the woman said with a stern expression. The twins stared at each other. Matu passé. Just then, Ella noticed a familiar sweet, buttery smell. Ethan seemed to notice it too. Crepes! Crepes! They said together. They had found Grandpa Harry's secret crepe shop. Oh, you are Americans. The woman's expression relaxed into a smile. I'm sorry, I did not realize. Password, please. Get your notebook. Get your notebook, Ethan told Ella impatiently. I know that,
I know that.
Ella snapped. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her notebook. Flacon,
Flacon.
she said to the woman after a moment. Did I pronounce that right?
Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you pronounced it just fine, the woman replied, still smiling at them. She pushed open a door behind the counter and waved them inside. Come this way, please. Chapter 8. Heroes. On the other side of the door was one of the most wonderful sights the twins had ever seen. It was a tiny room that was barely bigger than their treehouse back in Brookston. It had a few tables and chairs. A man stood at the stove, cooking a thin, golden pancake in a black skillet. He flipped the crepe over once, twice, then put it on a plate. He sprinkled it with powdered sugar. "Jean, we have customers," the woman announced to the man. The man turned. He had bushy gray hair and a mustache, and he reminded Ethan of Grandpa Harry. "Merci, Jacqueline. Bonjour, mes petits. Hello, my children. What can I make for you today?" he asked in a merry voice. Our grandfather sent us."
Our grandfather sent us.
Ella managed to say after a moment. "Oh, who is your grandpère?" Jean asked curiously. "Harry Robinson. He said you were friends,"
He said you were friends.
Ella piped up. Jacqueline gasped. "Oh, you are Harry Robertson's grandchildren? We have not seen him in years. How is our dear friend Harry?" "He's good. We miss him,"
He's good. We miss him.
Ella said timidly. "Oh, and he says hi,"
Oh, and he says hi.
she remembered. Jacqueline walked over to a wall covered with old photographs. She took one down. "This is a picture of Harry and Lucy when they were at the university," she said fondly. The twins stared at the picture in amazement. Here they were, across the world, in the crepe shop, and it was as if Grandpa Harry were with them. In the picture, he had thick black hair. Grandma Lucy had a long blonde ponytail and looked a lot like their mom. The picture, in its pretty gold frame, reminded Ethan of something. Frame. Painting!
Painting.
Ella suddenly burst out. "We have to tell you about the painting."
We have to tell you about the painting.
"What painting?" Jacqueline asked, confused. "Some thieves stole a painting from the museum this morning."
Some thieves stole a painting from the museum this morning.
Ella piped up. "They're hiding it next door.
They're hiding it next door.
We just saw it.
We just saw it."
I heard about this on the news just now," Jean said, reaching for his phone. "We'd better call the police right away." Ethan, Ella, Jean, and Jacqueline watched from the window of the crepe shop as police cars pulled up in front of the brick building. A few minutes later, some police officers brought the red-haired woman and the two men out in handcuffs. Another police officer carried the painting and jewelry. "You are heroes," Jean praised the twins. "Everyone in Paris will want to thank you for what you have done." Ella shook her head quickly. "No, it has to be a secret.
No, it has to be a secret.
We're not even supposed to be here."
We're not even supposed to be.
Jacqueline looked at the twins, her eyebrows raised. "Oh?" The twins explained about sneaking away from the Louvre while their dad had coffee with his college friend. "He'll be back any second now. We should go,"
We should go.
Ella finished, looking at the clock nervously. "But you can't leave until you've had my famous crepes," Jean said, picking up his spatula. Ethan glanced hopefully at Ella. She nodded. Yes, please. Yes, please, they said in unison. Why do you keep your crepe shop a secret?
Why do you keep your crepe shop a secret?
Ella asked the couple. Jacqueline wiped her hands on her apron and smiled, as if remembering something. Many years ago, Jean became known as the finest crepe maker in Paris. But he wasn't interested in becoming rich and famous. He just wanted to make crepes for friends and loyal customers. So we decided to start this little shop and give out the password to only a few people. Jean continued. Our password has been the same for almost 50 years now. Flacon, or hawk. He added, it's the same password that was used by a secret society that met here many years ago. Hawk?
Hawk?
Ella reached into her pocket and pulled out the gold coin Grandpa Harry had given them as a going-away present. It had a picture of a hawk on one side. Was it a coincidence? Ethan was about to ask Jean and Jacqueline about their password. He also wanted to know more about the secret society. But before Ethan could say anything, Jean held out 2 plates. Et voila! Here, please eat these crepes while they are hot. These were your grandparents' favorites, lemon and powdered sugar. The twins took the crepes and bit into them. They were warm and delicious, and just the right combination of sweet and tart. Ethan had thought croissants were his new favorite food, but now he knew it was definitely crepes. We really have to go,
We really have to go.
Ella said, nudging Ethan and pointing at the clock. The twins finished up their crepes and said goodbye to Jean and Jacqueline. Please come see us again next time you are in Paris, Jacqueline told them. Ethan and Ella waved goodbye and promised they would. Chapter 9. The Eiffel Tower.
Chapter 9, the Eiffel Tower.
That night, Ella sat down at the laptop to send Grandpa Harry an email. Ethan sat next to her, turning his gold coin over in his hand. Dear Grandpa Harry, guess what? We found your secret crepe shop. Mr. Jean made us lemon and powdered sugar crepes. They were yummy. Guess what else? We solved a mystery. Some thieves stole a painting from the Louvre Museum. We discovered them next door to the crepe shop. Mr. Jean called the police. We learned that the secret password to the crepe shop is the French word for hawk. Does it have anything to do with the hawk on the gold coin? Tonight, Mom and Dad are taking us to the Eiffel Tower to see the light show you told us about. We miss you. Au revoir. That means goodbye in French. Love, Ethan and Ella. Their parents came into the living room just then. Mr. Breyer wore a t-shirt with the Mona Lisa on it. Let's go to the Eiffel Tower, he said eagerly. We're reading still. He said eagerly. Hey, I just heard some news on the radio. Did you know there was a big art theft at the museum today? I guess that's why we had to leave. They caught the thieves with the help of an anonymous tip. Ella blinked innocently. Really?
Really?
Wow, we didn't know.
Wow, we didn't know.
Mrs. Breyer patted her kids on the heads. We should go. The light show will be starting very soon. As they headed out the door, the twins exchanged high fives. They solved the mystery of the stolen painting and found Grandpa Harry's secret crepe shop, all in one day. And now they were about to see a light show at the Eiffel Tower. Could Paris get any better? If you like this audiobook, please click subscribe to be notified of any new audiobooks we publish.